అవసరం లేదు. నమశ్రీ యతిరాజాయ వివేకానందసూరయే సచ్చిత్సుఖస్వరూపాయ స్వామినే తాపహారిణే. Today we have an interesting and intriguing subject. You all have heard about the topic. Ego, keep it elastic. So what is this elastic ego? We all are aware of the ego. Okay. That is the source of trouble. In fact, it is another name for Maya. What is Maya? Ego is Maya. If you are devoid of ego, if you are free from ego, then you have become free from Maya itself. Then you are one with the divine. I and my ego. When I say I and my ego, then there are two, right? Are you two? You and your ego? When my ego got hurt, people say, then you are saying that you are two. There are two entities in your being. Then it's a serious case. You can't be two, right? Sadhguru says then you need either an exorcist or a psychiatrist. When you say that I am two, I am and my ego, you are not two, you are only one. There is something base, something nasty in you, that which you call as ego. So the ego of all the people is not the same. When you have the physical body and the mind, that means you come here with that I consciousness, the sense of individuality attached to this body and mind, I. When you come into this world with body and mind, that means you already brought this I. If you are free from that I, you cannot have the body and the mind. Where will you be? You will be with God, in God, or you will be God. So from that spiritual existence we have fallen down because of this sense of I, sense of individuality, which separates us from our divine reality, from our divine nature. What separates us from our divine nature, from God, is this sense of individuality, sense of ego, which is bound to this mind and body. If you look at human beings, different people, everybody has ego, but there is huge difference in the quality. Somebody who is very ordinary, suddenly you make him a rich man, or you make him a powerful man, or give him a position of power, he cannot digest it. Somebody who is on the street, suddenly you make him the prime minister of the country, will he be able to digest it? He cannot. So to digest in power and wealth, you need to have a lot of strength in your ego. Not everybody can digest wealth, not everybody can digest power. So God knows what to give and when, but we are not happy because we think we deserve more. So before you expect more, you need to make your ego elastic. As of now, we have a brittle, very rigid ego. Okay? So if more is given, it is to our disadvantage, it is our to detriment. We won't be able to digest it. It will work against our own interest. So it's better actually we don't get things That all we desire. So Sri Ramakrishna talks about this kachami and pakami, ripe ego and unripe ego. A bhakta is supposed to have a ripe ego. Okay, you are a devotee of the Lord means what? You see God in all the beings and then you go to that God dwelling in all the beings. So then you are humble. What happens? Why should we become humble? In Bible there is a statement, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Most Christians, they don't understand the meaning of this statement. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. That means they will become kings, you say. When you become humble, that means when you surrender yourself to the divine, when you make yourself empty, completely devoid of ego, then you become the spirit. Then you become the king of the universe. Not only that you will inherit the earth, there Jesus wants to say that you will inherit the whole universe basically. You will become the king of the earth, means you will become everything. So from this sense of individuality to that complete lack of individuality, that is actually the highest state where this I has completely dissolved, then you become everything. So either you become nothing or you become everything, then you are the universe, you are the spirit. So to become nothing should be the goal. We have to empty ourselves. The spiritual journey is an upward journey. Your journey is a skyward journey, spiritual journey. Lighter the weight, easier the travel. Lighter the weight, easier the travel. What is the weight? This ego is the weight. You are free from ego, it becomes easy for you to travel skyward. You will reach the divine. You will reach the spiritual nature of your being. So Sri Ramakrishna talks about this kachami and pakami, unripe ego and ripe ego. Even to become successful in our worldly life, you should have that flexibility in your ego. It must be an elastic ego. When you have that elastic ego, it becomes easy for you to digest shocks and also to adjust with people. Your ability or capacity to adjust with multiple personalities will become easy if you have a flexible ego. If your ego is very rigid, very brittle, it will break. You can't deal with more than 2 or 3 people. See, most of the times the suffering for us in our world comes because things, they don't happen our way. We expect things to happen in one way, but the things have not happened that way, then suffering comes. Yes or no? If everything happens our way, then we don't have to worry about God or spiritual striving, okay? Spiritual emancipation. Everything happens your way. Whatever you wish for happens in the world. Then will you have any suffering? No. Nothing happens your way. Then what you will do? Then you will get disinterested in the world, right? You will develop dispassion in no time. Nothing happens your way. You wish for something, you will for something, you have a desire, but there is no means to fulfill that. You have no hope also. Now you will strive, actually you are making effort and it's not happening, that's okay. If everything happens our way, we don't need spirituality, we don't need God. If nothing happens our way, we will develop dispassion and you will become spiritual in no time. But that is not the will of Maya. This way God has kept the world in such a way, some things will happen in your way. We desire for many things, but a few things come in our way. We will be able to satisfy those desires. That is a temptation. Because something happens our way, some of our desires we are able to satisfy and fulfill. We cultivate more desires and we long for the fulfillment of those desires also. But those desires won't get fulfilled. We get blows. Then actually you have to think about spirituality. Why it is happening? Because you expect that everything should happen in your way. But it doesn't happen that way. The world is not designed like that. Certain things happen your way, but that is a temptation. You drop that complete sankalpa, complete will you drop, then you are complete, you are absolute. Everything happens our way. We don't need God, we don't need spirituality. We won't have any kind of suffering. Many things we desire, many things we expect to happen in our way. Right? That is our striving for. Some things happen our way. We hope for, we cultivate desires, we try to fulfill our desires, and then we are happy if things happen our way. And then actually this creates a hope. So whatever we wish for, whatever we hope, whatever we desire, so we think actually we will be able to satisfy those desires and the striving. But suddenly blow comes. Oh, this has happened my way. I had a desire and I could fulfill that desire. And now you have thought that you would be able to fulfill this desire also. But it has not happened. Then setback, then disappointment, then suffering. So that is temptation. Everything happens by the will of the Lord. We are just helpless instruments in His play. When you have this understanding, you will strive. Not that you won't strive, not that your ego is completely dropped, but it is subservient to that supreme I, the divine I. You are striving, but if it doesn't happen your way, you are not worried because you already surrendered. You are conscious that things won't happen the way you wish for. So when you have that kind of mentality, that kind of mindset, attitude, nothing of this world will affect you. Effortlessly you will be able to conduct this world. You just see divine personalities like Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, for example. Though he was the Supreme Lord incarnate, how he conducted himself, how self-effacing he was, how humble he was. He would give highest respect to even people who were considered low in the estimation of people. On Haladari, out of jealousy for Sri Ramakrishna had nothing actually. He had not kept anything for himself to invite the jealousy of others. But this Haladari still felt jealous of Sri Ramakrishna because that Mathur Babu, who was taking care of Sri Ramakrishna, was a very rich man. He would give a lot of respect to Sri Ramakrishna. Then this Haladari thought that Sri Ramakrishna, through a stratagem, made Mathur Babu his own man. And then he felt jealous of Sri Ramakrishna, and one day he kicked him with his foot. But Sri Ramakrishna did not become angry or get annoyed. He did not become angry. And afterwards, many days, many months after this incident had happened, he told this to Mathur Babu. I was ill-treated like that, he kicked me with his foot. And then Mathur Babu said, "Oh father, oh Baba, if you had told me then, I would have beheaded him." That was how actually Mathur Babu was protecting Sri Ramakrishna. But Sri Ramakrishna did not tell him, Mathur Babu, immediately, this man had kicked me. He did not feel at all. It's so self-effacing. Vivekananda says in Song of his Sannyasin, some people may put garlands on you, some may kick this frame. That means praise and blame. Sometimes praise comes, sometimes blame comes. Some people criticize you, some people will eulogize you. Your reaction should be the same. When praise comes, you get elated. When criticism or censure comes, you get depressed. That means you don't have an elastic ego. It's a very brittle. So then actually you will have suffering. So both you should be able to take the same ease. So all the great people are like that. Krishna, for example, you just see, he did not care for people like Kamsa and Duryodhana and Jarasandha. He did not give respect to them at all. He considered them as blade of grass. But when Kuchela went to him, he was the Dwarakadisha at the time, the Lord of Dwaraka, the leader of the Yadavas and king. But how much of respect he gave to Kuchela. A poor Brahman, I had nothing. But Kuchela had nothing with him. The people around got surprised seeing Krishna giving that much of respect to somebody who had not enough clothing on his body. He was half clad. So, but Krishna knew the greatness of his devotee. He would give that much of respect to his devotee. This man was full of love and full of devotion for me in his heart. He gave a VIP treatment, a royal treatment to Kuchela. So that flexibility in that ego you just see. When he was on the battlefield, he was ruthless. That Lord was ruthless on battlefield. When it comes to devotees, he would mellow himself down and would be so humble before them. So that is the elastic ego. Krishna, how many roles he had played. That Gopikas, They were all rustic women of the village, not educated, not so cultured, not so regenerate, but effortlessly actually mingled with them, though the Lord of the universe. Those innocent people of the village, he spent so many years with them. He gave same respect to them, as much respect he had given to the Pandavas, same respect he had given to these village folks. Some was superior, someone is inferior because he's a king, he's a wealthy man, so he's worthy of my respect. And this man is ordinary, is not worthy of my respect. No such consideration of high or low. Giving equal respect to all. That's the greatness of the individual. So if you have this idea and this understanding that everything happens by the will of the Lord, you can cultivate desires, you can have hopes, okay? We all have. You can strive for that. If it comes, okay, you take it. If it doesn't come also, it's fine, because anyway, things won't happen my way. Won't happen as I wish for. As Swamiji says, that when surrender is inevitable, surrender willingly and escape from suffering. What the nature is doing is, nature is forcing us to surrender. The Lord is forcing us to surrender. As I said that if few things have happened our way, then that is the temptation. Everything we expect to happen like that only. We have achieved some success. We had cultivated some desires. We tried to fulfill those desires. We could fulfill those desires, and that's the temptation. And now you strive for more, and you want everything to happen that way. So these desires also I must fulfill, because some of the desires have already been fulfilled. So you cultivate more desires and you'll strive for them, but no, things are not happening your way. Then you are broken. This desire I could fulfill, but this desire I am not able to fulfill. That is a temptation. That is Maya. So whatever that you should fulfill, okay, what desire you should fulfill and what desire you won't be able to fulfill, He decides. The Lord decides. So if you are surrendered already to His will, you have no suffering. To strive, you have the right. To cultivate the desire, okay. You strive. If it comes, fine. If it doesn't come, also okay, because ultimately it is His will that prevails. If you have this understanding, you will have no suffering. That's why Swamiji says, ultimately what nature is trying to do is, nature is forcing you to surrender. It is not your will, O man, that is supreme. It is my will, the Lord is saying at every instance. You can strive for things of the world, but all that you aspire for, you won't get it. You should not get. Even if you get it, it is dangerous for you. Many times we have discussed that also. We don't know even what to seek and how to seek, how many things to seek. Because we don't have a stable mind, we don't have a stable enough intellect, we don't even know what to seek for. We don't even know. Many people, they don't even know what to seek for because their minds are not in their control. So most of our desires won't get fulfilled. It's for our good. It's good. But then why is the suffering? So if you have this understanding that whatever happens in my life happens for my ultimate good, you are surrendered like that to the divine will you have any suffering? No. But there is so much of suffering because you compare with others. Others' desires have become fulfilled only with regard to me. Somebody is obstructing, somebody is standing as an obstacle. God is also not considering. God is also against me. And He is not kind to me. He is not listening to my prayers. He is listening to your prayers. He knows what to give you. You don't expect more. He knows what to give you. You take that and move forward. So the nature is trying to force us to surrender to its will. So that's why Swamiji beautifully says, surrender willingly, but we don't want to surrender. That is the friction. We don't want to surrender. We cultivate more desires and then you want to fulfill them. Some you will be able to fulfill, but not all. So when you fail to fulfill your desires, then you should have this sense of surrender. Yes, okay, I aspired for, but Lord willed it otherwise. Fine. Then there is no suffering. Suffering is because of our individuality, our inelastic ego, which is very rigid. So even to digest wealth and power, you need to have a very elastic ego. The sign of greatness of an individual is, irrespective of his social position, irrespective of his intellectual attainments, physical attainments like wealth, a position of power, if an individual can give equal respect to all, then he or she can consider a great personality. So to develop that elasticity in our ego consciousness, we can't just drop this, right? If you can drop it, the ego, you have the highest dispassion, you have totally dropped it, then you are in nirvana, samadhi. After 21 days, your body will drop. You will merge in supreme consciousness. You have no desire at all, not even a trace of desire, not even desire to live. Desire to live, I don't mean actually committing suicide. There actually people have desires, but they are unfulfilled, that's why they get out of the world. That's a different thing. But here, you have cultivated dispassion to such degree that you have understood that you don't need the physical body and the psychological body, namely the mind. Your is a spiritual existence. When you can develop that degree of dispassion, the body will drop in 21 days. You will get into samadhi, the highest state of nirvana. That is called dropping the body. It's not death. You will get out of the body once for all. Then you will not be reborn in this world again. You have become a mukta purusha. That is the highest ambition, highest aspiration a man can have. But this is a bondage. Now we are in bondage. So that's why in this culture, constantly our scriptures and sages talk about strive for mukti and mukti. You have got a human embodiment. It's not ordinary embodiment. It's not ordinary piece of life. It's not an ordinary instrument. You have the possibility. You are endowed with the capacity to attain to the highest state of experience, namely nirvana. Deathless existence, infinite existence. Existence that is a blessed existence, an auspicious existence. Compared to that auspicious existence, the present existence, physical body, you know what it is composed of, and the mind, psychological body, they are all too inauspicious. This is too gross, that is so subtle, so elevating, so grand, so noble. There is no comparison between this and that. Only the people who have experienced, they know. So after having tasted that nirvana bliss, the joy of consciousness, the joy of spirit, and individuals will be able to drop this body comfortably. But for us actually to drop this is very painful because now we think we are this. We are lived in total identification with this body and we think we are this physical and psychological entity, and to drop this is so difficult for us. That is because wrong identification. With so many births we have lived with total identification with the body and mind. If suddenly to drop it is not possible. For that only spiritual sadhana is necessary. As you develop dispassion for the body and mind, slowly your spiritual consciousness will get awakened. A little of that, the Chaitanya or the spark of the divine, that soul or that Atman or the self, they are all synonyms. The self will come into experience a little. A little manifestation has taken place. Now you have realized that there is some other entity other than the body and mind, which is operating the body and mind. And you want to have the full manifestation of that. You want to have the full expression of that. For that, the striving is necessary. Striving in the form of repetition of God's name. We have discussed so many times here. Meditation, selfless service. They all help you to let go of this lower ego. The quality of ego actually is being transformed. When you serve others, actually you have to drop your ego, right? You have to bend low. Otherwise you can't serve. And particularly in our culture, you serve the poor, they say. Why? Somebody is ignorant than you. Somebody is financially very poor. You are actually better placed than the individual. To serve somebody who is considered low, somebody who is lower than you, then you have to bend your ego low. So through that service, actually this cleansing happens. This is called the purification of antakarana. Now the present ego is very unripe, very brittle, very rigid. Through service actually you make it more flexible. And that's why selfless service is very important. To purify the antakarana, to refine the ego, to make it more elastic. It is insisted. Now I want to serve, he is a low man. Then actually your ego will stick to you. Like a ghost. It's a ghost only. A goblin. Sri Ramakrishna went to the house of a pariya and washed his washrooms. During his sadhana, he felt that I have this feeling that I am a Brahmana. I am a superior Kulina Brahmana. I was born in a Kulina Brahman family, high caste family, born of high caste. That pride born of high caste, high birth, is also an obstacle. It also creates ego. And you won't be able to move forward. To drop that, what he did He went to the house of a pariah in the night because daytime he would not allow. So in those days, the caste customs were very rigid. For a pariah, low-born, to allow a brahmana to clean his washrooms, how he would allow? It would become a scandal. All the people would come to the pariah's house. There will be a lot of commotion, hue and cry. So Sri Ramakrishna went in the night, dead of the night, when nobody was there around. And with his long hair, at that time he was in sadhana, he did not cut his hair for long. The long hair, he washed the floor of that washroom and came back. Just to attain to this complete self-effacement. Not I, just drop it completely. So you have to serve somebody whom you consider, the society considers as the lowest. Society considers, not that they are the lowest. Vivekananda says, if you think you are actually superior to an ant, then you will not come closer to God, he said. Okay, not about human beings, considering somebody low, somebody high. Looking at all human beings as the same, actually that is a higher ideal. If you consider even an ant as, inferior to you, and you consider yourself superior to that ant, then you will not actually attain the spiritual realization. That's why in Sri Vaishnavism, the Vaishnavas are asked to bow before every creature, not just actually before man. You have to hold like the joined palms. You must bow before a cat, before a rat, before a dog also. Why should you do that? Because there is divinity in that. There is that same life principle dwelling in that. So you are bowing actually before that life principle. So that principle, that spirit may not be, to the same level of manifestation as in you, but that is the fundamental principle is the same. The difference between a dog and human being is only in this, the degree of manifestation of the divine spark. Again, between man and man, somebody is very kind and compassionate, very charitable, very noble in his behavior, very gentle, and somebody who has the reverse of it, very self-centered, crooked, self-conceited, full of vanity. What is the difference? The same Lord. In him, one individual, there is a higher manifestation, another individual. The manifestation is very low. The spiritual sadhana is to have more of the expression of the divine. So, he would go in the dead of the night to that pariah's house to clean the washroom, just to have the total self-effacement, to become free from this sense of ego, this sense of vanity. So to attain to that degree of emptiness, completely free from this vanity, completely free from this ego sense, may not be possible for all of us immediately, but at least we have to make our ego a little more elastic. Today actually people are talking about leadership qualities, team spirit. You have to lead a team. How you will be able to do? Swami says a leader should be able to digest 1,000 minds. When you will be able to digest 1,000 minds? Only when your ego is elastic. But you have a very brittle ego, very rigid ego. Okay, things should happen only in my way. This is this. Then you won't be able to get on well with others. And you will be in constant friction with others. Then you can't be a leader. You can't lead a team. Somebody will criticize you, somebody will praise you. Okay, you will be able to digest it. You should be able to praise others when it is necessary. You should be able to censure others when it is necessary. Then actually you are a leader. No, some you like, some you dislike. Because some praise you, that's why you like those people who praise you. And some are more talented, but they don't praise you. They silently walk. But they don't find favor with you. Okay? Then you can't be a leader. If somebody who satisfies your ego, then you like such an individual. Somebody who doesn't care for you, but he is good at his own way. He is disciplined. He does his work well. But since he doesn't praise you, he doesn't respect you like others, you just see today actually, most of the times we encourage the psychophancy. Particularly in political field we find this. People go on showering encomiums on leaders. For what? Not that they genuinely respect them. They want something from them. So they think by praising them actually they will get that. The sycophants is to be seen everywhere, constantly heaping praise, though they don't deserve that much of praise. Because you have a selfish desire here. You think actually by praising them they will give you something. You are a slave of desires, and so you go to them. So all this is, a kind of weakness. And by doing that, actually you are actually making them more self-boastful. Their vanity will increase. The leader, though he is not worth for that much of praise, but constantly all the people around are praising him like that. He thinks, okay, really I am that great. Okay. He will also fall down after some time because vanity goes into his mind. Okay. When success gets into the head of the individual, then the downfall starts. That's why most of the genuine people, they don't encourage the people who are sycophants, who praise them. But some actually take delight in that. They want somebody around to praise them all the time. Then they're happy. So a genuine person doesn't encourage such kind of, praise, unnecessary praise, untimely praise. Then he understands, he sees through the mind of the individual. He wants something from me, that's why he's praising. So all these things we see. So to empty yourself completely, to make yourself free from this sense of ego, is the ultimate objective. That is the ultimate goal of spiritual life. You will become free from this bodily entanglement. This is a confinement, this is a limitation. You have been trapped, you have been imprisoned in the material. The soul actually descended into the matter, as it were, and now it's struggling to get out of the matter. It is easy to get into the matter, but it's very difficult to get out of it. Effortlessly, the spirit actually slips into the physical and the psychological, but to get out of it, actually, it requires a lot of trouble, effort. Sri Ramakrishna used to tell that story of Sri Mahavishnu. To kill that Hiranyaksha, the Lord Vishnu had to incarnate as boar, a pig. Fine, actually. He came, he did his job, the mission was accomplished, it had been over. But now he forgot. The Lord had forgotten that actually. He came, he took the form of a boar for a purpose and for a mission. After entering into the boar's body, he had forgotten completely. He was happy with the pigsty. He had his own family, wife and children, and he was totally happy that he had forgotten actually that he had come from Vaikuntha, the Lord Vishnu himself. So when Lord Vishnu himself would forget his real nature by entering into a physical body, and what to speak of ordinary human beings like us, you just imagine. That's how actually the matter wields, its influence upon the individual. We are so strongly conditioned, deeply conditioned. When you think that you are just the physical and the psychological, you are a conditioned existence. That's why Swamiji again and again would say that I am trying to dehypnotize you. You have already been hypnotized into believing that you are the physical and the psychological. When you think that I am the physical body, I am the mind, you are telling a lie to yourself. Okay? You are the spirit, that infinite spirit. You are basically the soul, consciousness. These two are adjuncts, the upadhis. You have taken up a physical body, you have taken up a psychological body, the mind. They are your possessions, but you are not that. This word actually, our Rishis say, our scriptures ask us to develop some distance from this physical body and the mind. All this sadhana is only for that purpose, towards that end only. Right? Swamiji was telling this point so forcefully and so powerfully to a group of Western audience. Then one lady felt that Swamiji was trying to hypnotize. And then she tells Swamiji, you are trying to hypnotize us because they don't know anything else. When he was giving that talk of Advaita, that everything is consciousness, to think that you are the physical body and the mind, it's a delusion. It's a lie that you are telling to yourself. And she thought actually Swamiji was trying to hypnotize her. And then Swamiji told, Madam, I am not trying to hypnotize you, I am trying to dehypnotize you. It's not such a small labor, it's not such a small thing. We all have been hypnotized into believing that we are the physical bodies and minds. So the rishis come in midst of us, incarnations come, God comes and says, oh man, you are not the body mind, you are the spirit. You are that infinite spirit, you are that eternal spirit. You are deathless, birthless, you are immortal. You are infinite. So by constantly listening, actually, one listening won't do, one lecture won't do, one reading won't do. It should ring in your mind constantly. Then slowly the mind actually withdraws from the physical. Because now you have given a thought to the mind and ask it to brood on that constantly. But now actually it is the habit of the mind to brood on the body. That has become so chronic with us and we think we are just the physical existence. So now you have given a thought to the mind and you are asking the mind, don't brood on the body so much, you are the spirit. So the now mind starts saying that I am the spirit, I am the spirit, I am consciousness. By constantly brooding on this, that I am consciousness, one day you will become conscious. Tattvamasi, you are that. The nature of the mind is such, whatever the thought that you give, it takes it and then broods on that and strengthens that thought. So this now the thought that we are the physical body has become so strong. That's all. How do you experience the body? Where do you experience the body? Body cannot experience itself. It is the mind which experiences the physical body. The awareness that I am the physical body comes through the mind, not through body as such. So because now it has become, kind of routine or habit, and we think we are the physical. Now you give the counter thought and then ask the mind to think about the spirit all the time. And slowly it withdraws from the mind. It doesn't happen all of a sudden. It takes a lot of sadhana and effort. One birth it happens, it's great. One birth it happens, it's great. You just see the eucalyptus trees, for example. Eucalyptus trees, it can withstand even a mighty gale. It can bend very low. Have you seen a eucalyptus tree any time getting broken by wind? Rarely. You won't see it. And see these our trees, ornamental trees, and the moringa tree. Just one small wind is sufficient. Tuck, tuck, it will crack and fall down. The branches will fall off. It will be broken in no time. But eucalyptus tree, no gale. Even a wind with 200 kilometers per hour speed also cannot break, cannot pull a eucalyptus tree down. Because it takes the shock, it bends low. The wind is blowing in this direction, eucalyptus tree is standing here like that, it just bends completely. 90 degrees it will bend, and then it will receive the shock. And other trees which cannot bend, they will be broken. Similarly, if you have an elastic ego, you will never get broken. You will be able to digest shocks. Any number of shocks is okay. You just see the strength of Krishna, the most elastic ego for that matter. How many people criticized him, right? Perhaps as an incarnation, no other incarnation had received as much criticism and censure as Krishna had received. So Shishupala 100 times actually criticized, abused Krishna. Vilest language he had used. Duryodhana, Kamsa, Jarasandha. He had his enemies, so many people. But the cheerful face, the joy on his face never left him. Praise and blame were one and the same. That means most elastic ego. So this is actually an elastic ego, is a strong individual who has got that elastic ego is a strong individual. So otherwise you will just break down. Oh, things have not happened my way. This person is not listening to me. That person is not listening to me. They will not listen to you. As you are not listening to them, they have the same complaint. They think you are not listening to them. So don't expect anybody just to behave the way you want them to behave. They have their understanding of life. They estimate you according to their understanding, their samskaras, their tendencies. Just as you estimate them, you understand them with the help of your samskaras and tendencies. Just as you have the right to judge them, they have the right to judge you. You think they are wrong and they think you are wrong. Who is wrong and who is right? Who has to tell in this relative world? I have my limitations, they have my limitations. It's okay. Today in our country, the institution of marriage, it's getting weakened by the day. You think why? Because of this rigid ego. That's all. Petty ego. There is no flexibility in that ego. A small difference of opinion is sufficient to terminate the marriage. They are getting separated. They don't care. I don't like you, that's all. Instead of developing that ability to digest other person, because this way in our culture it is told that when you enter into marriage, the other person who is actually entering into your life is God sent. The marriages are made in heaven means that God actually fixed this person for you, for this life. If both have the understanding, life goes smooth. But now today we have the expectation. What kind of expectation? You have your role model person. He or she should be like this. He or she who is entering into my life, spouse, should be like this. There is nobody in this world who actually fits into your understanding exactly. Who will fit into your likes and dislikes. That's how we are different from each other, right? If another person has same likes and dislikes like you, he or she should be like you exactly. In physical appearance also, because the external physical body is just an appearance. It's just a manifestation of the internal. When you say somebody actually should fit into my likes and dislikes, what you are saying is that other person should be exactly like me. Then it will be boring. You don't understand that. The other person should be exactly like me. God has not created actually anybody like that. Even twins also, there will be some psychological differences by thinking. Physically they may look alike, but the inner makeup there is small differences there. Inner makeup there is small differences. That difference actually makes things beautiful. If that difference is not there, they are 100% alike. Then actually it goes against the basic principle of creation. Creation is based on differentiation. Creation is based on duality. Creation based on multiplicity. Once that multiplicity is destroyed, that diversity is destroyed, the differentiation is destroyed, there's a boredom. You just imagine all the people are looking alike and thinking alike. Terrible bore, right? You can't bear the person. One person is there in your family who is exactly like you. You can't bear that individual. You want the person to be a little different from you. That's your expectation, that's your longing. That's why God has created a person who is completely different from you. Then how you will get along with that individual? When you understand that just as you have your likes and dislikes, and other person also has a right to have her or his likes and dislikes. Then you become considerate. I am not an absolute being actually. I have my mind actually. Mind is not absolute, mind is relative. You are in the relative and he or she is also in the relative. He or she has some understanding, I have my understanding. So when you respect others' opinions, others' beliefs, others' likes and dislikes, then it becomes easy for you to get along with the other individual. Otherwise, even for small things, they get apart. They go for separation. This is happening. A noble institution, the stability of a society depends upon the stability of this marriage as an institution. If that becomes weakened, that becomes weak, then the society becomes weak. We are not noticing this. Why that is happening? This petty individuality, the petty ego, the brittle ego, the rigid ego is the source. Make it more elastic. I can digest any person, it doesn't matter, because he is also created by God, she is also created by God. Maybe not that noble. And now there is our culture, marriage also, they have invented this institution to help you to attain to nirvana, basically. How through marriage you will attain nirvana, you may ask. You are supposed to surrender to the other individual completely. You are supposed to surrender to the person who enters into life and serve that person more than you serve yourself. When there is yourself, you can't really serve the other person. That's how actually you are supposed to achieve self-effacement. By serving the person who enters into your life totally. That means requires total surrender. That becomes possible only when you consider that person as a divine incarnate. That the instruction is given to both men and women. Women are taught to consider their husbands as veritable manifestations of the divine, and also men are told to see Divine Mother in their wives. When you have that kind of understanding, he or she is not a human being, it's just the veritable manifestation of the divine, the form of the divine, an expression of the divine. Divine has come into my life, I am supposed to serve this divine. That requires total self-effacement. When you have your own ego, when you are individuality, you won't be able to serve that individual. You totally keep yourself. I am here to serve. You just make use of me in whichever way. What? I have nothing of my own. I am here to give joy to you. No, now the problem is, both of them will be in competition. So you surrender to me. So this is the problem. There actually the individual who is strong only will be able to surrender, not the weak person. Surrender requires the highest strength. Individual who is strong alone can surrender, not the individual who is weak. If you really have the strength, whether the other individual surrenders to you or not, you don't care. I am here only for your joy. I don't seek anything for myself. You are divine for me. So this is the God you are supposed to serve. When you defy the individual like that, you will attain nirvana through marriage itself. But because of this inelastic ego, the brittle ego, rigid ego, you don't get along with one person and then you become separated. Then you become separated. And afterwards, are you happy? No. The problem is not outside. The problem is not with the individual as such. The problem is with my inelastic ego. The problem is my brittle ego, my rigid ego, my inflexible ego. Nature is telling you the problem is not outside with the other person. You need to drop this, you need to change it, you need to transform this. The transformation happens through spirituality. where you are asked to see everybody as manifestation of the divine, when you don't have desires of your own, where this body and mind you want to use it for the service of others. If you can't serve others, the general human beings, at least the person who enters into your life, you serve that one individual totally, without any reservations, without any conditions. No condition is imposed. I'm just here for your service, for your happiness, that's all. And at that level of surrender, if you achieve to one individual, you will attain nirvana. That you have made yourself empty. That's all. Right? So this is very mysterious, this ego according to Yoga Vasishta. It's as a goblin. It's a spurious projection. It is fictitious. It's not real. By dropping this, by killing this, by annihilating this, you won't die. You will expand into the supreme consciousness. Death of ego is not death of individuality. We need to understand this. Most of the people are not prepared for that. That is the problem. That means your ego is still in its primitive stage. It has not fully grown. Okay. The Emma Kave, that opera singer, she became a disciple of Swami Vivekananda. And Swami said, you come to India. And Swami promised her that I will help you get to nirvana. Further, you have to drop your individuality, that's all. But she said, Swami, no, I don't want to come. I want to have my individuality. I value that. It's very dear to me. Because of that individuality, I got this recognition. Okay. She got some recognition as opera singer. She could earn some money because of that recognition. But that's nothing compared to God, attaining God. Because now you don't know what is it to attain God. What is it to attain nirvana. That's why you hold on to this limited and little one as if it is of greatest value. That's our problem. That is our weakness. Now we don't know what it is to attain to Godhood. What it is to attain to Brahmi Sthiti. We hold on to these limited things. We develop identification and I don't want to lose it. No, this is mine. I want to hold on to it. Without this I can't live. But this is my existence. But this is a lie. That is not your existence. This is a limited, conditioned existence, a truncated existence. This is the source of trouble. From this finite, truncated existence to that infinite existence is the goal. Not many are prepared to let go, to drop this. The problem is that Sri Ramakrishna says, unless you pass through all the stages, from a sweeper to a king, you pass through all these stages, you have had all the experiences of life. Then you have matured, that Pakami says, mature ego, that can be dropped. That is a sattvic ego. But now probably your ego may be very rajasic or tamasic. Tamasic and rajasic ego are very brittle. It breaks very quickly. If it's sattvic ego, it's more elastic. And it can be dropped. So to transform this tamasic and rajasic ahankara through selfless service, through repetition of God's name, you can't surrender to the individuals that easily. Well, I am a mortal and you are a mortal. How can I surrender to you? You surrender to the divine then. Surrender to the Supreme, the creator of this universe. Because he is absolute. What is the problem in surrendering to the absolute? He will take care of you, right? He is conducting the affairs of the whole universe. He will take care of you when you surrender to him absolutely, unconditionally. But that requires strength. You must grow in strength. And when Swami says strength is life, weakness is death, this is he meant. To surrender, it requires the greatest strength. Nature is forcing us to surrender. Constantly it is intimating to us, constantly alerting us, your suffering is coming because of this, because of your inability to surrender to the will of the divine. You are suffering. You think actually suffering is coming because of X and Y is not behaving the way you expect them to behave. And these people are responsible, these things are responsible for suffering. No. Your own, this limited I is the source of all the suffering. This is such a mysterious thing. Ramanjanaya Yuddham. Rama once had to fight with Hanuman, his own disciple. It is not mentioned in any scriptures. There is a legend, there is a story in this yogic lore. Narada, the mischief monk, the divine sage Narada, is an expert in creating quarrels. So one day, he went All people, the Vishwamitra, Vasishtha, all the sages were there in the court of Rama. They were doing a yajna, the yajna was over. Hanuman actually by nature is Ramadasa, absolutely surrendered individual. He would respect everybody. Always this is his posture to everybody because he sees everybody as form of Rama, manifestation of Rama. Ramadasa, he considered himself Dasa of Rama. So because there is Rama in everybody, a soul, a spirit, everybody, he would only, this is the posture, nothing else. I am Dasa of the whole universe. So the Satra was over. He was actually paying his obeisance to all the sages. But in between, Narada goes and tells him, see, Vishwamitra is a Rajarshi. Don't pay your obeisance. You don't have to pay your obeisance to him. He is lower, he is very inferior. Then Hanuman took it seriously because Hanuman had regard for Narada also. The divine sage is telling him, how can I say no to him? He says, I don't have to pay my obeisance to him. So he became indifferent. He did not actually salute Vishwamitra. And then Narada goes to Vishwamitra and tells him, you see, this Hanuman, how egoistic he is. He paid his obeisance to everybody, but he is not actually respecting you. He did not pay his obeisance to you. Deliberately insulted you. Then Vishwamitra, Rajarshi, flared up. As how dare this monkey disrespect me like this? Then he goes to Rama and he says, Rama, your Dasa, your disciple, yours, has insulted me. I can't bear this insult. He must be killed. Vishwamitra is Guru of Rama now. So Rama is disciple of Vishwamitra and now Guru is ordering me and I have to do the Guru's bidding. Then Rama comes to kill Hanuman. The Hanuman actually, how to do? The Rama got angry. Rama wants to kill me. How to save myself? But Narada goes and tells, the debate is all about whether Rama is powerful or Rama Nama is more powerful. Just to prove that Narada actually played this trick. He wants to establish that God's name is more powerful than God himself. Then he goes to Hanuman and says, you just chant Ramanama. So Hanuman was in the Sarayu river and chanting Ram Ram, Sri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Rama goes there and he shot his arrow. Arrow after arrow. The arrows go and they circumambulate Hanuman and come back into his quiver. Rama was surprised. Ramabhana, the arrow of Rama is irresistible. There is nothing in the universe which can stop Rama's arrows. The Hanuman was just chanting Sri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. It's a total surrender. He established himself in the absolute. And Rama was in the relative. Hanuman actually got established in the absolute. Rama actually considering him as a disciple of Vishwamitra and his incarnation is the son of Dasaratha. So he has attachment to this body and he is in a physical embodiment. So in the relative world, Rama is thinking that Hanuman is my disciple. So he is in the relative. So he has come down a step as it were. But whereas Hanuman, by chanting Sri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, with total devotion and absorption, he has got established himself in the absolute. First time Ramabhana became, useless, futile. It could not hit the target. Circumambulated Hanuman and came back because Hanuman was established in the absolute. Nothing can destroy the absolute because there cannot be two absolutes. Only the absolute is infinite. So it comes back. Ultimately, he shot Brahmastra. But Brahmastra also became ineffective before Hanuman's Ramanama. And then Narada says ultimately that God's name is more powerful than God himself. More than the Rama as a person, as an individual, his name is more powerful because that name takes you to the absolute. But the individual Rama, as the son of Dasaratha, may not be, that powerful, may not be able to take you to the absolute because when the person comes in human form, you won't surrender completely because you will find some dosha in the individual, Some shortcoming we will see in the individual, so our surrender won't be perfect. But if you have faith in the divine name and if you constantly utter it, with total absorption and devotion and love for God, and then you will attain to the absolute more easily than by surrendering to incarnation who is in a physical embodiment, physical form. So these stories actually all may not be authentic. You don't find any original source for this, but all these stories have come to tell us a principle. There is some science behind the story. They wanted to convey a principle. If his principle is told as principle, you won't remember it. So it is put in a story form. The Lord's name is so powerful, it's higher than the Lord. You have faith in that, and things will happen. You will get to the absolute. So we shall stop here for today. It is 6:40 now. Time for Bharati. Let's meditate for 2 minutes today and then we'll disperse. Ooh.